It's been 2 weeks since this whole thing started. It all started with a tanker accident. It was all over the news. Everyone thought it was just another oil spill. There were plenty of volunteers, plenty of people to help the poor defenseless animals, plenty of victims. Within hours of the accident, it started happening. The animals had gone crazy. They were scratching and biting the cleanup volunteers. They said it was just an adverse effect of whatever was in the tanker. Rescue workers were still trying to get the crew out of the ship. They could hear screaming inside, screams to open the doors. But that's when it all went to hell. As soon as they cut the doors out, there were 6 minutes of broadcast before it went silent. 6 minutes of screaming agony. The ship crew attacked the rescue workers like rabid baboons, breaking bones and tearing flesh. The people on the shore weren't faring any better. Those who had been attacked by the animals were attacking everyone else. It was worse than any war zone report. It was sheer brutality, and yet the broadcast still went on for 6 minutes. 6 minutes and in blank faces, nobody could explain what was happening. They tried to continue with regular news, the economy, the weather, a cute human interest story. They couldn't make us unsee what we had seen. I tried to continue with my regular existence, but every time I switched on the news, I walked by a newsstand, it was there. This big mystery. They had some explanation, some kind of infection, they had brain parasites, but it didn't matter. It wasn't the infection we're afraid of, it was them. 4 days after the initial report, a state of emergency was raised, and yet we'd all seen this before. Every zombie movie, after all. People didn't know who to trust. People were stockpiling food and weapons. Some people tried to flee, but it seems like every zombie movie was actually right. They didn't make it. 3 days later, they arrived in my town. I expected moans, shuffling corpses, dismemberment. But that's where all the movies lied. They ran through the town screaming like banshees. I remember running to my front door as fast as I could, locking and barricading, doing anything to make sure it would stay shut. And then I headed for the window. I was on the second story and I could see the carnage. They were unstoppable. They were aware. A group of them made their way through a building across the street. They jumped straight through the plate glass windows. Even a shard slicing through them made no difference. They just kept coming. My barricade wasn't going to hold. I rushed around my flat, grabbing supplies and jamming them into the most secure room of my flat. I went back for one last look, and I wish I hadn't. In a second-story window, they saw my face. That was when I knew that they knew I was there. I quickly dashed into the room, locked the door. I didn't have any kind of panic room or basement, so the safest place I could think of was my bathroom. No windows, one door with a lock. I filled my sink in my bathtub full of water so I could stay for a while. I sat there in a dark room with distant screams echoing through my ears. I began to feel like I may have overreacted a bit. It's been 2 hours and no sign of them. It actually got quiet. And I thought they moved on. Maybe I could just leave the room and go to the kitchen, grab some more food, and maybe wait it out. But then a crash came through the front door, the sound of someone running at full force through the door and knocking down the barrier behind it. There were a couple more crashes. Before I knew it, they were inside. Rapid footsteps moving around the flat, and a couple of screams, and then a bang on the wall next to me. My eyes were open at their widest. Even though the room was pitch black. Another bang, and then another. They knew I was there, and they knew I was scared. This was a zombie nightmare that I had been expecting from the start. I had nowhere to run. There was only so much time before they would just break in. I sat with my back against the door, hoping my extra weight could make it harder for them to get in. And then it got worse. Why don't you open the door? The voice on the opposite side of the door. No screams, no moans. Just a quiet, whispery voice. And then more of them. We've come for you. You'll be happier if you open the door. It's not so bad. The whispery voices became a cacophony of noise, trying to persuade me, to break me, to fool me. I had heard the moaning zombies would drive people insane, but this was worse. It was a siren's call. I sat in the darkness and hoped and prayed they'd get bored. But they don't get bored, and they don't leave. I managed to use the mirror to see underneath the door, only to be greeted by horrible, unblinking eyes, blood-smeared faces, screams, and more horrible whispers. That was 2 days ago. I don't know what to do anymore. The bathtub is near empty and the sink's near empty. Maybe going out won't be so bad.